Confidence does not begin in the outside world. It begins quietly within the conversations you have with yourself every single day. Most people underestimate just how powerful their inner dialogue really is, yet it influences every decision, every action, and every emotional response. When your inner voice is filled with doubt, criticism, and fear, it slowly shapes a reality where hesitation becomes normal and self-belief feels out of reach. On the other hand, when you intentionally shift that inner dialogue toward encouragement, clarity, and belief, you begin to create a completely different internal environment, one where confidence can grow naturally and consistently. This transformation is not about pretending to be perfect or ignoring challenges. It is about choosing to respond to yourself in a more supportive and constructive way. Inspired by the timeless teachings of Dr. Joseph Murphy, this approach focuses on the idea that your subconscious mind absorbs what you repeatedly tell yourself, whether it is positive or negative. That means every thought you repeat is essentially a suggestion you are planting into your deeper mind. If those suggestions are rooted in doubt, your mind will accept limitation as truth. But if those suggestions are rooted in belief and possibility, your mind begins to align your actions, emotions, and habits with that new direction. The first step in this process is awareness. You must begin to notice how you speak to yourself during both success and failure. Do you encourage yourself when things go wrong, or do you immediately fall into self-criticism? Do you acknowledge your progress, or do you dismiss it as not enough? These patterns often run automatically, shaped by past experiences, but they are not permanent. Once you become aware of them, you gain the power to change them. The next step is intentional replacement. Instead of allowing negative thoughts to repeat unchecked, you consciously introduce affirmations that reflect the person you want to become. These affirmations should be simple, clear, and emotionally meaningful, such as telling yourself that you are capable, that you are improving, and that you are worthy of success. Over time, repetition strengthens these new patterns, making them feel more natural and believable. Alongside affirmations, daily mental exercises can reinforce this shift. Visualization, for example, allows you to imagine yourself acting with confidence in real situations, which helps your mind become familiar with that version of you. Consistency is key here, because real change happens gradually through repetition and reinforcement. As you continue this practice, you will begin to notice subtle but powerful changes in how you think, speak, and act. Situations that once triggered doubt will feel more manageable, and your reactions will become more grounded and positive. This is how confidence is built from within, not through external validation, but through a steady and intentional shift in your inner dialogue. As you continue developing awareness of your inner dialogue, you begin to realize that many of your thoughts are not facts, but habits that have been repeated so often they feel true. This realization is powerful because it creates space between you and those automatic patterns, allowing you to respond instead of react. In that space, you gain the ability to choose a different narrative, one that supports your growth rather than limits it. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," you begin to shift toward, "I am learning how to do this," which immediately changes your emotional state and your level of engagement. This subtle shift in language is exactly what Dr. Joseph Murphy emphasized in his teachings. The idea that the subconscious mind does not argue or analyze, but simply accepts what it is told repeatedly. When you consistently feed it thoughts of progress, strength, and possibility, it begins to operate in alignment with those ideas, guiding your behavior in a more confident direction. However, this process requires patience and persistence, because the mind is naturally drawn to familiar patterns, even when they are unhelpful. That is why repetition is so important. Each time you replace a negative thought with a constructive one, you are weakening the old pattern and strengthening a new one. Over time, this creates a shift where positive self-talk becomes your default rather than your effort. Another important aspect of this transformation is emotional connection. Words alone are not enough. They must be felt to create a lasting impact. When you repeat affirmations, it is essential to engage your emotions and truly believe, even if only slightly at first, that what you are saying is possible. This emotional reinforcement acts as a bridge between your conscious intentions and your subconscious acceptance. Alongside this, consistency in daily practice helps anchor these changes into your routine. Whether it is a few minutes in the morning, a reflection at night, or brief moments throughout the day, these small actions accumulate into meaningful transformation. You may also notice that as your inner dialogue improves, your external behavior begins to change naturally. You speak with more clarity, take more initiative, and approach challenges with a calmer mindset. This is not because the world has changed, but because your perception of it has evolved. Confidence, in this sense, is not something you chase. It is something that emerges as a result of disciplined thinking and intentional self-communication. There will still be moments of doubt, but they will no longer control you in the same way. Instead, you will recognize them, address them, and redirect your thoughts with greater ease. This ongoing process becomes a lifelong skill, one that strengthens with practice and awareness. By committing to this shift in your inner dialogue, you are not only building confidence, but also creating a foundation for resilience, clarity, and personal growth that extends into every area of your life. As this new pattern of thinking becomes more familiar, you begin to notice that confidence is no longer something you force, but something that feels increasingly natural and stable. This is because your inner dialogue is no longer working against you. It is supporting you in a steady and reliable way. The voice inside your mind starts to sound less like a critic and more like a guide, offering direction instead of discouragement. This shift changes how you approach challenges, because instead of immediately anticipating failure, you begin to expect growth and learning. Even when situations do not go as planned, your response becomes more balanced, allowing you to adapt rather than withdraw. This is one of the most powerful outcomes of intentional self-talk, as it creates emotional resilience that carries you through both success and difficulty. Inspired by the principles taught by Dr. Joseph Murphy, this transformation is rooted in the understanding that your subconscious mind responds to consistency and belief. The more you reinforce supportive thoughts, the more deeply they become embedded, eventually shaping your automatic reactions. Over time, you may find that you no longer need to consciously correct every negative thought, because your mind begins to default to a more constructive perspective. This does not mean that negative thoughts disappear completely, but they lose their intensity and influence. You become less affected by momentary doubt and more focused on long-term progress. Another important aspect of this journey is the role of self-trust. As you consistently practice positive self-talk and follow through with your intentions, you begin to trust yourself more deeply. This trust strengthens your confidence because it is based on experience rather than assumption. You know that even if you face uncertainty, you have the ability to guide yourself through it with clarity and purpose. This inner stability reduces the need for constant external validation, allowing you to rely more on your own judgment and perspective. At the same time, your communication with others often improves, because the way you speak internally influences how you express yourself externally. You may find that you are more assertive, more composed, and more authentic in your interactions. These changes create a positive cycle, where improved inner dialogue leads to better actions, and better actions reinforce your belief in yourself. As this cycle continues, your confidence becomes more consistent and less dependent on temporary outcomes. You begin to define yourself not by isolated successes or failures, but by your ongoing commitment to growth and self-improvement. This mindset allows you to take on new opportunities with a sense of curiosity rather than fear, knowing that each experience contributes to your development. Ultimately, the shift in your inner dialogue becomes a foundation for a more empowered life, where your thoughts, actions, and beliefs are aligned in a way that supports your highest potential.